what you're showing is that you want to know the person as a person. They're not just, a facility for work.
The commodity.
Yeah.
What would happen if we just told the truth?
Welcome to TruthWorks, where we dig into the nitty-gritty of leadership and work.
And what needs to change. I'm Jessica Neal.
And I'm Patty McCord.
Our journey together started in HR, but trust us, it's evolved into something wild, honest, and a bit rebellious.
So throw out the handbook. We're here to redefine rules to work for us, not against us.
Let's dive into another episode. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Neal. Welcome to another episode of TruthWorks. Today, I have this person on the podcast who I'm excited to talk to you guys about. You're famous in your own right here, but this person's name is Alex Sandy Pentland. And you are, I don't even know how to explain you. You're like a distinguished, award-winning data scientist. Right? And you have won many awards, but I think your full-time job is that you're a professor at MIT and you're behind sort of this whole lab that I want you to tell us about, that you have lots of, I'm guessing, experiments going on in. But tell us a little bit about you, Sandy. I know you like to go by Sandy, not Alex. So tell us a little bit about you and the work that you're doing. And then I'm going to get into some of the questions that I have for you.
Okay, so I'm Sandy. My dad's name was Alex, so I got the diminutive, Sandy. So I'm at Stanford now, although
I thought you were still at MIT.
Well, I am sort of still at MIT,
okay.
Right? So at MIT, it's the Media Lab, what is Media Lab? Well, it's actually sort of about how humans and technology work together. And at Stanford, it's the Human AI Initiative, which is how human and AI work together. So that's really my core focus is, data, but it's not like statistics. It's about how do you understand what people are doing using data to be able to, really get past some of the myths and some of the advertising about how life and cities and companies and, intergenerational things happen. And I think that what we're trying to do is take it to a new level where we have a lot more truth about human life and what's good and what's maybe not so good and where we're going.
Yeah, which is what I'm so fascinated to talk to you about today. And, I guess, so I think a good way to categorize the work that you do, Sandy, is that you're studying the human behavior, invisible systems that shape how we work, how we make decisions, how we figure out how to trust each other. Is that a fair categorization of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what I really want to explore today is that beneath all the data and the models, what does it actually mean to be human, right? Within this world of AI, in this world of data, how do you get trust? How do you collaborate? How do you lead when there's a lot of our behavior that's being measured and, metrics. So I guess the first question I really have for you is about trust and its currency. I think you've talked about that a lot. So can you expand on what you've researched and seen in a high trust environment, not with necessarily leaderships and systems, but just how have you seen that play out? What's the research that you've studied? Tell us a little bit more. Do you think we've lost our way?
We've looked at lots of, I think we misunderstand what trust is, and there's sort of too much of, people trying to manage trust, right? I mean, look, trust is in our data. We've looked at lots of different situations in companies and communities and so forth. It's really when two people, because it's between people, right? When people feel like the other person has their back. So, every time I talk to you, I get something good from it. You're obviously putting effort into it. And every time, you talk to me, I try to do the same. People are very good at sensing that. And what happens is, of course, that people end up going to each other for help, for advice, for moral support, for fun. And when you see that behavior of people, choosing to seek out the other person and vice versa, that's a very strong indication of trust. And if the situation is right, it's also a precursor to friendship. I mean, when I say the situation is right, at work, sometimes things are a little formal or you don't see people very often. But, we found that we can actually predict when people are likely to become friends because they're beginning to have that exchange with each other. So trust really is this sort of notion that, we're valuable to each other and we are happy with the deal, essentially, that we have by interacting with each other. It's not some necessarily big thing. Like, for instance, if you were buying something at the local, corner store, right? And you went there every day, maybe you bought a coffee on the way, and one day you show up without your wallet and you can't pay. Would they just give you the coffee anyhow because they know who you are, right? That's the sort of genius of trust is that there's a little bit of helping people out in there.
Yeah,
and people forget it, right? That's what the core is.
Right. So, and at work, because we like to talk a lot about work on this show, like in your research and studies, like how many companies are maybe not exceeding their potential because they've just lost trust?
Well, 95%. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's everywhere, right?
Right.
And it's because they think that they confuse trust with being predictable, right? So, we have rules, we follow them, you can trust us, right? Well, no. I can trust you to exploit me or ignore me but trust is really, having that level of interaction. Culture, like the culture of trust, has to do with people talking to each other, trading stories about what happened, about what the stories mean. And if the stories are about how good things happened when there was a problem, and that type of story is spreading around, then you get a culture of trust because people have an expectation that things will come out okay and they'll be understood and so forth. It's that sort of circulation of stories that builds the culture, builds this, what I'm calling in my new book, shared wisdom, that is the stuff of trust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's so true. And I mean so at Netflix, we worked really, really, really hard to have trust because we knew that if we had that connection from the top down, that we would move faster, we would make better decisions, we'd work better with each other when we didn't agree, we would work through it faster, right? But without the foundation of trust, we knew that things wouldn't be as easy. And so we worked really hard to push each other to have the conversations nobody wanted to have, to talk about the things that nobody wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And really get to know each other on a not just work level, but a personal level. And I'm not talking like,
That's
you
right.
know, I think we were colleagues more than friends, but we knew about each other's worries and strengths and hardships, right?
Yep.
And
it's
we,
like whenever I do a Zoom
Yeah.
call, I always spend the first couple minutes asking how people are and how's the family. And I mean, just dumb things like what's the weather like, because that gets into all sorts of things. What you're showing is that you want to know the person as a person. They're not
Right.
just, a facility for work.
right, the commodity. Yes.
Yeah.
So okay, I want to talk about the new book, right? But I also want to talk about like how do you do your research? What's the process? Tell us like where you look, what you've studied, how have you learned all these wonderful things that you know?
Well, we do a number of different things. The overall area is called computational social science. So everyone's sort of familiar with social science, and it actually has gotten a bit of a bad reputation because a lot of things turn out to be not replicable, or they're It's not clear how you use them in the real world. Computational stuff is saying, oh my gosh, you have all this data out there now about where people go and what they say online and this, that, and the other thing. And that's really scary. But if you approach people and say, look, what I'd like to do is not look at your personal lives, not steal your data, but what I'd like to do is understand what are the signals of trust? What are the signals of interaction that mean that your kids will grow up to be successful, things that they care about. And what we're asking them to do is to contribute a little bit of data so that everybody can understand what's a better way to live. So you find things like I talked already about how it's this pattern of interaction that is the signature of trust, how it's the spread of ideas and conversations among a group of people that is how you build culture. There's other things that are really surprising, not my work, but from my community. Like if you take kids that are at risk, right? So they, perhaps a bad family situation, bad neighborhood, but there's at least one person in the neighborhood that they get to see that has been successful. They've started a store, they've done something, they've sort of taken charge of their life. Those kids are so much more likely to grow up to be successful themselves. It only takes one. Interestingly, if you're a girl, it has to be a woman that's successful. They don't pay attention to them.
Right.
If you're a boy, it has to be a man that was successful, and it doesn't matter that there's some women that are successful. So it's this sort of trading of stories, and in this case, these are stories about how you have to act to be successful in your life. That is what gives people sort of a repertoire of behaviors to choose from. And it's that repertoire of ideas. What do you do in this situation? What do you do? That's sort of the wisdom that can guide you through life. And it's also shared wisdom like that, sort of things that everybody knows, is how you get people to work together.
Mm-hmm. That's just fascinating. And I think your work is needed now more than ever, and the world that we're headed into. But tell us a little bit about the new book. What's in the book? What are you writing about?
Well, it's this topic, really. It's this notion that we don't really understand what it means to trust, to have culture. The title of the book is Shared Wisdom, which is the sort of things that we all as a community believe. And the subtitle is Cultural Evolution in the Age of AI. And what that is saying, where are there opportunities for all this AI stuff? It's coming. You got to figure out what you're going to do with it, right?
Yes.
Where are there opportunities to build a better culture? So what's better? Well, better is more trust, more collective action to be able to make your lives and communities better, making better decisions. And it turns out that the rules for doing this are not that different than the rules were 100,000 years ago, right? People have to talk to each other. You have to be able to talk to people with lots of different experiences to figure out what works, what doesn't work. So what the AI that's going to be useful for us as people is AI that helps us find the stories that are most useful to us and to be able to communicate with each other.
But don't you think that, I don't know, I feel like AI too, like you just said, that it's important that we get different perspectives, different stories, get all the information. But I feel like sometimes with AI, you're only getting that story that it wants to promote to you because of one thing that you like. So you're getting this, you're getting insulated with the same type of people, the same type of perspective. And it's almost, I don't know, I feel like these days more harmful than good. You think about how Instagram works, and I personally feel, I want to know your thoughts because you're way smarter than me, but I feel like it's making us less connected and more divided.
I absolutely agree. But you've made a move in there, which I think is the critical move. And that is, you're assuming that AI is to provide answers. Okay, well, I don't want AI to provide answers. I want AI to connect people. I want AI to be able to be a fair mediator among people during a conversation. And I'll explain what I mean about that. So let me give you an example of something that companies are doing which is really interesting. I was on a panel with the chief technical officers of a bunch of big companies, and they're all talking about how it's really hard to get data to do things and this and that. But one of the things they had all done is build AI buddies. So what's an AI buddy? An AI buddy is all the manuals that nobody ever reads. It's all the newsletters. It's how do you find people who are doing things like you or relevant to what you're doing? Those are the questions that it answers, right? It's trying to connect you to the right people for what you're doing right at the moment. That is a very human thing. And it's something we have a hard time and even increasingly hard time because of work from home, because of international. So, AI as a buddy that helps you find the things, doesn't tell you what to do. It says, here's some things that might be interesting. It's like Google search. Google search is not unhuman because people use it to help them find things out. It's like a superpowered library index card or something like that. AI is the same, can be used the same way. And then the other thing we do, we built a website. We're doing this with cities and companies and so forth, all free, all open, just take it, called deliberation.io. And what it does is it's AI helping to be a good facilitator. So the AI doesn't contribute any ideas at all. It says, it listens to the conversation and it says, occasionally, what I hear is some people saying this and other people saying that. Is that right? And that sort of brings people back to what has actually been said. So the loud voices tend not to dominate as much. So the minority voices don't get lost. And here's the kicker. The decisions that people make when they have that type of mediation are objectively considerably better than the decisions they make without mediation.
Right.
In fact, and people like it better, right?
How do you get it to mediate? Like how do you utilize that in a meeting for people who want to do that?
Where it's like think about it like a Slack channel or Twitter or something like that. People are making comments. They don't get to reply to each other. The comments are anonymous, but they're from the work group. Okay. So you don't know quite who's saying who. And what it does every once in a while, it gets the instruction to please summarize what people are saying. That's all it does.
Okay.
It's not perfect at that.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. We understand. But it's not bad. It's actually seems to be better than the normal human in terms of bias
summarizing,
and forgetting.
Right.
It just is summarizing, not finding the answer. So by summarizing, what you're doing is reflecting back to people what has actually been said. You're picking up the threads that might otherwise get lost. And what ends up happening is people begin to understand each other better. Now, let me give you an example of this. We did this with a couple of different things. The biggest one, we had a group of 30,000 people, right? And we were debating things like, who should have guns? Really contentious things. Okay?
Yeah.
And what we found was that the biggest problem in that sort of debate is that most people don't know what the other side thinks. Mm-hmm. Because all you hear are these like influencers and the big voices.
Like the rhetoric.
And so you think everybody on the other side is a crazy.
Yeah.
And yes, there are crazies.
Can we give this mediator to our government right now?
Well, interesting you say that. So we did an exercise with Washington, D.C., the city, and we asked a bunch of people, and we tried to make this very inclusive. So people with 2 jobs and 3 kids, that sort of people, right? We're not talking about the big brain, powerful people. We're talking about the people.
The everyday people.
And we asked them, what should government do with AI? And you know what they came up with? I got to have you guess.
To have them less divided.
No, they wanted an AI to help them deal with the government. They said the government is too crazy. It's too complicated. God knows what I'm going to have to do. That's the sort of thing that AIs are good at. It's like search. It's like collecting the data to give to you so you can make your decisions in an informed way where you know the context. And they like that idea. Everybody was using this moderation AI. I don't think we told them, we showed them, But I don't think anybody like sort of fascinated on the fact that, oh, hey, here I am interacting with an AI and all these other people, and it feels natural. They like the experience. And they came up with something that the government didn't think of, the researchers didn't think of. It was, we need AI for us to defend us.
Yeah. Wow, that's so fascinating. So, as I'm listening to you talk, I think what I'm hearing is if you're using AI in your life, in your company, in from a connection lens, from a summary lens, from a listening lens, and instead of like tell me what to think lens, that can be very beneficial.
Right, because that's exactly correct. And the reason is people, it's hard to talk to a group of 100 people, right?
Yeah.
You just physically can't do it. But you can have somebody summarize 100 people. Often the way it ends up happening, though, is somebody who has an agenda is the one doing the summary.
Mm-hmm, right.
So actually, it's pretty good because, it might be a little biased, might be a little this or that, but it doesn't have an agenda.
Right.
And you can actually make sure it doesn't have an agenda. And
you can tell it not to.
It gives you, yeah, exactly. You tell it not to. And so it's like holding the community up to a mirror, right?
Yeah.
Saying, oh, look, right?
Yeah.
I have a friend that uses this type of technique to run a government in Taiwan.
Wow.
He calls it the face of the crowd. When people see the face of the crowd, they behave very differently than they normally do because now they know the other people better. And that's what this is doing, is giving people this mirror so that they can see themselves better.
Yeah. So how does he do that in Taiwan? What does he do? What is he doing exactly?
Well, the things that we're doing are inspired by what she actually is doing.
She? I know. Here I said
Audrey
he,
Tang.
and I should have said, what are they doing? I just assumed it was a man.
Yeah, no. Well,
Easy mistake.
Actually, it's a little difficult because when I first met Audrey, he was a man, and now he's not.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Which is pretty interesting for somebody who's a state official, right? But
yeah, fascinating.
Anyway, so that they did is this system called Polis, which was actually developed in San Francisco. And we took the basic ideas from that and tried to make them much more inclusive and effective. And the basic ideas are that people shouldn't be having like little battles the way they do on Twitter or something like that. You can make comments and you can need to see the other people's comments. So there's mechanisms to make sure you see, see other comments, but not like, you idiot, you can't do that, right? All the people are authorized in some sense that you know that they're actually humans, right? They're not
It's not
bots.
some robot, yeah.
But you don't know their names. They're still anonymous. So it's like secret voting and stuff like that, secret ballot. And then there's visualization of what people are saying so that you can actually see the face of the crowd. And the way this original system that they were using did it was sort of complicated and people didn't quite get it. So we made it really something that is like what you see on your phone. And in fact, it runs on your phone, right? You can sort of begin to engage this. We call it everyday deliberation. People talk about stuff all the time. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Right? But it's not like you're studying it. It's just this little conversation around the coffee pot or before the meeting or whatnot. And that's what we tried to do, is sort of have people put in comments and then be able to visualize what the whole range of comments is so that you're not dominated by the loud voices and the influencers and stuff like that. So you see what everybody really thinks. And it turns out that when you see that, you realize that you're not alone. You're not the outlier. Then the other guys are not crazy, mostly. And so
Maybe
forth, right? Maybe, well, some are guaranteed,
some are.
right?
Yes.
There's some on both sides that are a little crazy,
Absolutely. There's a spectrum always.
But like even, for instance, just to give an example, it's a very salient type of example. In this country, an issue like abortion is very, very contentious. But actually, if you ask individuals in sort of an anonymous way, most people are in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And, the agreement in the United States is a little more liberal than the agreement in Europe, but
Right.
it's not that different.
Right.
But you never hear that because there's a lot of passion by people with very loud voices.
Right.
And I think, there's a lot of issues like that
Yeah.
where,
I think that's so fascinating that could, if we just used AI a little differently than we're using it now to help us solve some of these tougher problems, or at least get on the same page about really how people are actually feeling versus, the extreme end on both ends, like that would be really productive.
that would be
So
great.
that's just,
Yeah.
it would be great. Can we just start doing that? That would be wonderful. Let's start doing that tomorrow. But if I'm
Well, we're trying to do that, right?
yes,
Yeah.
well, Sandy, I hope you get it done. If I'm a CEO and I have a company and, we're trying to find our way in AI, and perhaps I'm trying to build more trust. Perhaps I'm trying to have more transparency. What's the one or two things you think I should do, immediately in terms of
Well, I think that
helping
the easy
people with
thing
this?
that's amazingly effective, or seems to be, is this AI buddy thing. So don't use one of the big expensive AI models. Use the small ones that are open source, but put into it all the manuals and, newsletters and stuff that are relevant for each job, right? That people have. To have something that can help people know what's going on in this company that they're working for, right? What are people really doing? And that's this sort of face of the crowd. In this case, it's the face of the company, as opposed to people who are blustering or angry or something like that. You'd like to find out what's really going, so you can find the people that you really want to talk to, the people that have things to contribute to what you're doing, so you know what the culture is. I think that's maybe the simplest thing to do, and in some ways the most effective. It helps a lot with work from home. It helps a lot with distributed sites around the world. It helps people be in the loop. I mean,
Right.
This is not rocket science.
Yeah.
This is like,
No.
Humans need to be in the loop. And so a tool that helps you be in the loop makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing, I think is really easy is this Deliberation.io stuff that is just a simple little thing. It runs on phones, runs on computers. It's free. So all there. It's just a way to have conversations that are civil, where you get to hear all the voices. And it turns out people are civil and you can hear all the voices. They make better decisions.
Duh. Right.
Of course
Duh.
they do. But that's the thing to do. And the reason not to use AI is that AI is trained on historical data, always.
Right. Yeah.
It has to be, right? And it's telling you what to think, but you don't know why. If you learn what people are, this sort of like shared wisdom, what people think in general, what happens is people begin to understand why other people think this way and why some particular thing is a good solution for everybody. And that's what you need. That's why you need that sort of shared sense of what we're doing, why, in order to be able to move forward together.
Yeah, because your human intuition, right, is just being, you're not using that. You're just informing it with more information because you're an imperfect human and maybe you forgot what happened in the meeting or somebody didn't summarize it correctly. So You're using AI to help you hear all the things you need to hear so that that human intuition is more fully formed, if you will.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I mean, the human intuition is not magic. It's something that's much more informed by context and experience than AIs. I mean, the AIs never lived, right? They never had a mother. They never had a father. They never had a bully in middle school. There's a bunch of things that they never really had.
Yeah.
They are sensible, but they're sort of the common conversation, public conversation. And that's different than the way we actually live through things and the internal conversations we have with ourselves.
Yeah.
And so getting rid of those and just ignoring that internal experience and the context is a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And interestingly, in the book, I point out many examples where it looked like a good idea because this was what all the scientists or politicians or whatever said, but actually it was stupid.
Tell us one of those. I want to know one of those. Tell us one of those that you talk about in the book.
Well, there's a number of different things that different people find different things striking, right? So, I mean, this is one you may not relate to. We'll do a different one. So, like you get on TV and you hear all these physicists talking about the Big Bang and the beginning of the Earth and how they're like so authoritative. I was like, my God, this guy's like God. He knows like how the universe began, right? Except that about 20 years ago, they discovered this stuff called dark energy and dark matter.
Right.
Which meant that everything they thought was true was only 20% of the whole universe. And 80% of it, they didn't know anything about. They don't know what it is, what it does, how it works. It's like, oh my God, so here's the pinnacle of science, right? And it was not just wrong, it was dramatically wrong. We need to be a little modest about, what we think we know and what we don't know, right?
Right. But I mean, maybe that's like because I was just thinking about through history and the people who, have been right about many, many things, but also wrong about many, many things. And is that just the crux of being a human? Like, you've studied humans for so long. Like, I don't know. Is it just that we're imperfect, but what do you? I don't know. What do you find most frustrating about us?
Different way. So I think in our culture we are told to be rational and there's science and we understand things, and that's actually BS. Okay. A much better characterization of us is we're sort of like wandering around trying to figure out what works. We don't really understand it, but we see it working, and so we try to do more of it. We're explorers. We're not logicians. Yeah. When that physicist gets up there and says, this is the truth, right? He's BSing you. He's actually they explored they found some stuff that really works, but there's a lot of stuff they don't understand. When it comes to humans... Yeah. And human culture, it's far worse. Yeah. So if you look at, human culture, things change all the time and it's immensely complicated. And having people say, well, I know the answer is just on the face of it ludicrous. What you're trying to do is you're trying to sort of like, figure it out how to get through the next day or the next month. And it's going to be much more experimental than just figuring it out.
Is that about ego, or what is it about when we get really loud and forget to be humble or forget that we don't know everything? Is that, I don't know, is that just being a human, or is that like some people suffer from that more than others?
If you're interested in gaining power, you try to sound like you know the truth. And this is why we get these loud voices, right? Is that, I know the truth, follow me this way, right? Right. And, occasionally one of those people is right, but usually not. And it's this sort of lack of humility in the pursuit of power, I think, is the fundamental problem.
Right. And, when you think about people that get into those positions, whether it be corporate or political or otherwise, there is something about the desire for power that probably gets in the way.
It also works. I mean, people are very credulous of people who say, I have the answer, right? Believe in me. In some way, that's the root of the problem, right? What historically, in 100,000 years, evolutionarily, what Mother Nature told us to do is we'll try different things. Different tribes, different groups will try different things. And a good fraction of them will get wiped out because they're picking the wrong thing. Right. But the ones that survive will spread their good ideas to their children and so forth. Yeah. And that way, culture will evolve to be more survivable, successful, etc. And that's, again, it's a sort of a modesty thing. Is that, we're all sort of experimenting. People say, well, Why was Europe so really creative and innovative, the Renaissance and so forth, whereas China, which was advanced, more advanced in many ways, wasn't? One of the answers is that Europe had lots of little cultures. Most of the cultures were wrong, okay?
Yeah.
But some of them worked out pretty well, whereas China tended to be much more uniform. And, if they didn't pick it right, then everybody suffered. And it's called the bad emperor problem.
Right.
Emperors are great until they're not, in which case they're completely disastrous for everybody.
Well, same with CEOs, I think,
Absolutely.
So I have two more questions for you before we get into career confessions. But one is, in your research, was there one part, you've done so much research. So was there one part of your research that just kind of shocked you, that you were shocked by, or you no?
Well, there's several things that I think are really interesting. One is that groups can actually be better than the math, right? When we look at people who are professional investors, it turns out that this notion of the sort of group mediation actually helps them be much better investors. These are guys who are solving equations to be able to make money, right? But it turns out that when you do that, you tend to forget a few things, or maybe you don't appreciate the risks. And if you put the group together, you tend to get a much better investment strategy. Really core stuff. It's complicated, but people have the thought that they've worked it all out, but not really, right? That's one thing. Another thing that people always get very excited about, it turns out that about half of the people that you would name as friends don't name you as a friend.
What?
Yes.
Are you
think
serious?
About it. Yes. And here's the other thing. If you're an immigrant, or you're from a sort of minority that is not doing so well, the answer is that it's 75% of the people would not name you. And what is going on there?
Yeah, what is going on there?
We all have a bunch of people. Yeah, we all have a bunch of friends that are higher status than us, right? They have lots of friends. They know lots of people. And we aspire to be friends with them, but they have so many people they'd interact with that in any list, we're not likely to make the list.
Oh, goodness.
If you're in a community that's suffering, you do more of that. So this notion of exploring to make connections is a very basic human driver. It's something where you do that because that's going to help you get ahead, survive, feed the kids, whatever, right?
Right.
And then I already mentioned this other one, which is out of a group at Harvard, which is that even having one successful person, and success means starting a store or something. It's not like a billionaire.
Right. Yeah.
Even having one successful person in a neighborhood helps all of the children understand how they should live in the future so that they are objectively more successful. The parts of the country, the parts of society that are worse are the ones with no successful people. They're really much more like ghettos. And if there's no role model of what success looks like, well, guess what happens to the kids?
Yeah.
They're
not successful. That's such a bummer on this. Okay. So, it's the last question that I have for you is, it's hard to sort of see the optimism in all of this. There's a lot of things going on in the world. There's a lot of sort of negativity around AI in general. But are you optimistic about the future? And maybe you can give us some words of wisdom and how we should feel optimistic for what's to come?
Well, we're in a major transition point, and there's always dangers there. But I like to point out that if you look at the apps on our phones, right, if you look at the things we use all the time without thinking about it, they're almost always social apps. We spend our lives trying to meet, learn, interact with other people. Even if we don't think of it that way, that turns out to be the thing that feels best to us, right? There's sort of our emotions drive us to be explorers. And so I'm hopeful that the AI that helps people explore will win out against the AI that tells people how to behave.
Okay.
Now,
Well,
you can tell that there's, there are risks there, right?
Yes, there are.
That way. But I think if we all sort of recognize that we don't want to get out of the business of being human, we want to have things that help us be more human. And the interesting thing is that is more objectively successful than the other way around. So if you look at applications where the AI is telling us what to do, those are less successful than the ones where the AI and the human are working together to make the human smarter. That's
right.
That's
and
the
so
data,
if you're listening, people, it's how you're using it. So use it in the way that Sandy is talking about, right?
Yep. That's why I'm here.
Yay!
That's why I wrote the book.
And by the way, the book's not quite out yet, right? It's coming out. When's it out?
It's November 11, I think it is.
Okay, yeah. So
but it's on pre-sale at Amazon and other places, right?
Buy Sandy's book on pre-sale on Amazon and wherever else you get your books, and then you get it on November 11th and read it, because I think that this is a really important thing for all of us to kind of be thinking about as we are in this inflection point, right? And
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, us humans can really rally around what we want this inflection to be.
Yep. I mean, I think, and inflections are interesting because it's a point of time where little things can make a big difference. It's where people's choices actually will influence which way the machine goes.
Mm-hmm.
When things really get running and it's all big and there's billions of dollars, it's hard to influence. Right now, you can begin to influence it still.
Right, which is a privilege that I think we should all take and understand that that's not really, and probably in some places in the world, that's less of an opportunity, but where we are, it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a very frustrating time because everything's chaotic and God knows what's going to happen. And, so you need antacid pills or something like that. But it is a time of opportunity also.
You certainly do. So take your antacid and take your opportunity.
That's right. That's the idea.
Yes. Okay, well, will you join me in a career confession?
Okay.
We can give somebody some work advice. Okay, I'll set it up with some context. So here's the context. I feel like my workplace is filled with meetings and dashboards, but no one really trusts each other or even knows who to trust anymore. How do we rebuild genuine trust and flow of ideas in an age where every interaction is mediated by data, screens, metrics, Zooms? What do you think, Sandy?
Right. Well, the meetings thing is a sort of a relic of this 17th century thinking that said, okay, the way to build a bureaucracy or an organization is just like the army. We're going to have bosses of bosses of bosses as hierarchy, and everyone has a fixed role. Meetings are, okay, the boss says we're going to do this, and we get the different sort of pieces together. It's always the same piece. This is not the way people actually make good decisions. We can survive in that, but we hate it.
Uh-huh.
The way people make decisions is essentially lots of gossip. I mean, I'm serious, right? People just...
Is it like, it's like the telephone?
Yeah.
Like I heard that you said this, and I heard that so-and-so said that. And
exactly. And that's what happens before meetings and after meetings, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where so much of the actual culture gets defined and the sort of wisdom and collective action. And so you want tools that support that. That's the good stuff, not the meeting. And also, people think of meetings as a way to, distribute the new idea to people. No. What you want is you want people to learn why and participate in thinking why a particular direction is a good thing. You want it to be genuinely participation. And that's why we built this Deliberation.io thing. You can use it. You can build your own. You can do this also without any AI, right? It's just You're not going to be as good.
Yes, so that's a free tool that you guys have that they can use.
Yeah,
correct?
Deliberation.io, just on the web. Take a look at it.
Cool.
And there's data and studies and junk. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess by doing this, they can start to rebuild trust.
Because it's that person-to-person communication, the trading of stories, trading of favors, that is the material of trust. It's not, we have fixed rules and we always follow it. It's a lack of rigidity. It's rigidity,
Yes,
right? That's not
rigidity.
trust.
No.
Trust is I've got your back.
Right. Well, Sandy, I've got your back because you're amazing. And I'm so glad that you came on the show. I don't know. I feel like my brain is circling and excited about how I'm going to use AI differently in my life. And so I thank you for that. And I hope our listeners are going to as well. And I'm just grateful. Too. I'm grateful that people like you are on the case.
Well, let's all get on the case and we can understand it better. This is actually one of the things I keep selling Deliberation.io, but one of the things is it's not a product. It's a research project to find out how to build better trust and better decisions. And we've gotten somewhere with it, right?
Yeah.
But the more people use it, the better it will get.
Yeah. And so people can find that tool and find out about you and find out more about your book where?
Just search for Shared Wisdom. There's 2 shared wisdoms. There's the book, and then there's some, I think it's religious site. Don't go to the religious site.
So go to the book site, not the religious site. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, Sandy, thank you so much. It was just a pleasure having you, and I'm so glad.
It's fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Well, good. I'm glad smart people like you exist in the world. Smart, logical people. How about that?
Well, no, I don't want to be logical. I want to be a good explorer, right?
Yes, a good explorer.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
good talking. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Truth Works.